If I got this all set, perfect. All right. So, folks, today we are talking about spiritual awakenings. Okay. We're probably going to get into what is our message, how do we carry that message, et cetera, et cetera. But we're all going to talk about, first off, the spiritual awakening that everyone in here has already had. Okay, so that is the primary spiritual awakening that we're going to talk about today before we get into the rest of what step 12 has to offer. But until then, the first thing that we're going to talk about is a spiritual awakening. What is that? How do we have one? If I was going to break it down simply, is it a big thing? Is it something that I have to have over a long period of time? Are there small spiritual awakenings compared to large spiritual awakenings? How are these spiritual awakenings generated? Is there an easier way to understand this for someone who may not be quote unquote spiritual? You know, because I see oftentimes I'll be talking about this and you'll have somebody who does not believe in God or have a spiritual sense or whatever the case may be, and they kind of question this. So hopefully I can put it in a tangible sense for you guys to also understand that today. But the first thing we want to start off with is talk about what we're talking about today, which is the 12th step. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to addicts and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. Okay, this spiritual awakening that we are having is as a result of something. What is it as a result of? This specific one that we're talking about here is as a result of working the steps. So we have this spiritual awakening that occurs is equal to, right? Working the steps. Now, in working the steps comes a lot of work, right? Like, now, it sounds simple. It sounds like having had a spiritual awakening as a result of working the steps. Like, that's the first part that I kind of want to talk about. That sounds super basic, super simple. But what does it mean to actually work the steps, right? And just break this down with any problem or goal that you have that you're trying to accomplish. Today, we're going to talk about some spiritual awakening that we want as a result of working the steps. So this person has chosen to recover from addiction as a result of working the steps, okay? They have, first off, they have to be an addict. They themselves have to identify themselves as an addict. And then in order to work the steps, they have to start going to 12-step meetings, right? This is kind of like a specific 12-step spiritual awakening that you're having. Now, somebody else could have a spiritual awakening about their addiction as a result of going to therapy, as a result of going to church, as a result of going to a hospital or jail or some other institution, right? There's many different ways to have a spiritual awakening to overcome your addiction and get into recovery. The one we're talking about today is from working the steps. And in order to work the steps, you need to be attending AA meetings or 12-step meetings, right? You also need to get a sponsor, right? You know what else has to happen? You need to work the steps, right? Which, do you know what that means? That means that you have to sit there and write them out. And then you have to share that with another person. So you're not only sitting there taking time and effort to write these things down, to actually put them down on paper. And what are you putting down on paper? Not like the most amazing stuff. You're writing down unmanageability in your life. You're writing down emotional regulation. You're writing down character defects, character, shortcomings. You're writing down all the amends that you have to make, all the people that you've harmed. You're writing down your daily inventory for who knows how long. You're sharing this with another person. This person isn't a licensed clinical social worker. This person isn't a PhD. They don't have a doctorate. This is just some fucking person that stumbled also into this meeting, and you decided to trust them with all of your deepest, darkest secrets. And as a result of that, you get a spiritual awakening. As a result of that, a spiritual awakening occurs. So wait. As a result of doing all of this stuff and staying sober and maybe going to meetings and doing this and doing that, this spiritual awakening occurs, because it's not just working the steps. All of this other stuff goes into working the steps. I mean, if you want to work them thoroughly. If you don't want to work them thoroughly, then you're not going to get the results. You may have a altered spiritual awakening, but then again, your spiritual awakening is your spiritual awakening. That result that you got is as a result of the effort that you put in. Now, I mean, the program may work. Like, you sit here and say, if somebody just eats chicken, broccoli, and fucking rice in a balanced portion every single day, in addition to exercise and other healthy choices, the chances are they're going to lose weight. Like, over a course of 90 days, if they stick to that program, maybe they'll lose weight. The chances are pretty fucking high, dude. Now, if they don't get the results we want, perhaps they deviated from the program. That doesn't mean chicken, broccoli, and fucking rice doesn't work. That maybe means I wasn't able to work it. You see what I'm saying? So a lot of people, I mean, you even talk to the people who are unable to work the steps like completely. Maybe they relapse at some point, like the third or fourth step. They're not going to say it doesn't work. They're going to say they didn't work it. Now, it's interesting because when you go down any other avenue, say you go down, let's say therapy, people may blame the therapist that it didn't work. Oh, I had a shitty therapist before. That's why it didn't work. Maybe. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe. It's up to you to decide that. I mean, are you just waiting for the perfect therapist to fall in your lap? Like, oh, please, God, I'm just waiting. I want a better therapist. I'm waiting for this facility to hire a better therapist. No, dude, go somewhere else, dude. If you don't like the program, do a different one. Try something else. Why continue to show up here, right? So now, what is this spiritual awakening that is even developed? Like, what does that even mean? Now, I couldn't really find like an exact definition of spiritual awakening, but what we are going to look at is one that I did find that kind of works. Then we're going to break down the two words and see if we can like come up with a definition that may work. So first off, I Googled spiritual awakening, and what came up was this. What is the meaning of spiritual awakening? It says a subjective experience in which an individual's ego transcends their ordinary. So this is an individual's experience. That's why I'm saying maybe it is for you. Maybe it didn't work for you. Maybe a different therapist works. And that's what they believe. That's their subjective experience where their ego transcends their ordinary. Maybe when someone says that therapy shit don't work, that 12-step shit don't work. Yeah, bro, you're transcending your ego. You're arrogantly transcending your ego. You know what I mean? Transcending your ego doesn't necessarily need to be hyping your ego up. Maybe it's lowering your ego. You look at all the work that has to be done to be in recovery. None of that shit is arrogant, dude. None of that requires arrogance. It's all humility. So what you're going to see in this process of having a spiritual awakening most of the time for this specific type of spiritual awakening, and bro, you can go ahead and say what's morally right or morally wrong, but you can't be naive to like the reality, right? Like even though what is good food is a broad topic to discuss, I'm not fucking eating pens, dude, right? I'm not sitting here saying my dog may eat this, right? But I'm not going to eat this, dude. That's not me eating this shit, right? So although food is a wide, broad discussion, we can't be dumb to say what is and is not food, even to things that may look like food. Like if you're eating rat poisoning. Like some of the chemicals you may find in the grocery store kind of look like soda. You know what I mean? So then you get to the discussion of, okay, well, then there is food. So it's no discussion about what is not food and what is food. But then what about the discussion on food? Let's take what is food, right? And we look at that discussion. Apparently there's right and wrong about what to eat and what not to eat. And those right and wrong are usually based on a foundation of values. You know, if somebody wants to change, that change is dependent on transcending their values, like changing their values, changing their morals. The finite sense of self to encompass a wider, infinite sense of truth or reality. Like the spiritual awakening, the ego, the way that an individual's ego transcends from working the steps is maybe like, wow, that worked. I can't believe that worked. You know, a finite sense of self where it's like, I'm not a bad person. I can recover. I thought this was impossible. Now it's possible. This is wild. You know, this new truth, this new reality, right? Like I'm discovering something new. I can't believe this new experience that I'm having, this new set of circumstances, and this is as a result of working the steps. That is remarkable. Like one may say, wow, it's almost like a light bulb goes off. Like, oh my God, that is crazy, right? Now just consider the beginning of the discussion when I said, today we're going to talk about a spiritual awakening that everybody has had in this room, right? Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of using too much too often. What do you think the spiritual awakening someone has from using too much too often might be? What I mean, not all spiritual awakenings are good. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody here had to say, whoa.
I'm a drug addict.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. I'm a drug addict. Holy shit, dude. Like as a result of doing what I've been doing, I have become an addict. Now just consider the journey of that discovery, right? Consider how much time went into that, how much using went into that, right? Consider, oh my God. Consider like the emotional changes, the character changes, right? All the shortcomings, the list of people that we harm, living that day in, day out, the shame, the fear, the resentments, every relationship with friends, family, school, jail, police, you know, all that shit going down the drain, you know, losing time, losing money, losing health, living this day after day, praying to God, maybe losing a relationship with God. You know, that takes effort. That takes time. That takes you doing that. And as a result of doing all of that, we come to a point and say, oh my God, I'm an addict. And that is a subjective experience. What brought you here may not be the same as what brought me here. And like of what ordinary is. You see what I'm saying? So there is no ordinary when it comes to discovering we have a problem with drugs and alcohol. That's a subjective experience. Some people have to go through a lot more pain than other people. And what happens is typically people are usually having like near-death experiences. They're having serious health problems. They're like, dude, people usually, when they get to this point, this is called rock bottom. They say, I'm going to die. They say, I need help. If I don't fix this, something bad is going to happen. And they come to this spiritual awakening. And as a result of that, we have a message to carry, right? Like, just consider that, right? As a result of using too much, too often, I have a message to carry to addicts. And what is your message to someone who's still using out there? Like, what is it?
Something like that. And John's leaving. He's going to get his new leg.
Awesome, dude. Merry Christmas. Hell yeah.
What else is you need to get help? I don't know.
You need to get help. Say someone comes to you and they say, bro, I think I'm fucked up, bro. Like, what do you think I should do?
I would say go to a meeting.
Go to a meeting?
Because I feel like people in that situation are like, most of the time we're like, I need to go to rehab right now. You know, because especially I know when I was fucking, you know, I was like, I don't really need rehab. I can just go to a meeting and fix myself.
I would tell them what my experience was and how I got sober. Now, I'm not going to tell them what to do. I'm simply going to share my story and, you know, how I did it. You know, carrying the message of recovery to the other person isn't to help that alcoholic. It's to help me, first and foremost. So.
What, when you, before you admitted you were an addict, right? Had there been times in your life when you felt as if, all right, let me ask this question. Before you admitted that you were an addict and like you said that you needed help, did you ever get prompted that you were an addict and you didn't accept that? You didn't like, had anybody ever told you that you were an addict and you had a problem before you admitted you had a problem?
Absolutely, a million times.
And what is that like?
I was always defensive. I never thought I had a problem.
Is there a specific like time that you recall? I mean, I heard a lot of immediate yeses. Does anybody have a story of a time where somebody was prompting them about their addiction?
For me, like, because mine has been pretty much lifelong. Like, I've had periods of sobriety, but my son, probably in 2018, he was like, he just kept talking about addiction, get help, and those types of things, and how worried he was. And I was like, there's no reason to worry. I'm fine. And I was going to jail every couple of weeks. I was wrecking my car. I was doing all these things. And, you know, I was just like, I'm fine anyway. And I wasn't as defensive with him as I was other people. But I was always like, there's no reason to worry. That's what I used to always say. I've got it under control.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have it under control at all.
My family recorded me and then showed me the video and said, Robin, this is every day, 7 days a week. You know, that kind of pushed me into acknowledging that I did have a drinking problem. But, I mean, that's what they did every single day on some level. A 2-3 minute video of me.
Wow.
You know,
Oh, there was so many videos of me.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. It just made me mad. The videos, they always make me mad.
Right. Anybody else recall a time where someone if circumstance or event is like prompting you that you're an addict and you're unable to see it?
I always knew that I had a problem, but like financially, I kept making an excuse that financially I couldn't afford rehab or something like that, you know. And I didn't know what my insurance covered. I never took the time to look it up, but I did have my brother, who I'm really close to, called me and was talking to me about, you know, everything that was going on, and I, you know, was upfront and honest with him, and he mentioned that my family was thinking about staging an intervention, and I immediately signed up for rehab.
Oh wow. Okay. So we have.
I knew it was coming, so I either wait for an intervention or I do it myself.
Yeah.
But he had already found the place that I had visited. So he told me that, and I was like, okay, I'm willing to do it. He's like, okay, well, I already contacted somebody. And so I think it was maybe the next day I called them, got some information, kind of started the process.
Okay. All right. So
From fear and having to do an intervention.
so that may have to face an intervention was enough to get you to end up here.
Certainly.
Were there other times where people were trying to like talk to you about it? Like just like when do you recall, like, I mean, how long ago do you recall people trying to talk to you about your drinking problem or your using?
Kratom for me, I had used it for like 9 years.
9 years.
9 years.
When was the first time someone said something to you?
Gosh, I hid it very well. People like, but I don't know. I started having seizures, so people knew something was up then. I've had like 5 seizures, but I always brushed it off and just like, oh, I don't know. But I don't know. I mean, to be honest, I don't know when the first time somebody confronted me on it.
Okay.
But internally, I've been like battling, knowing that what I was doing was wrong. It was hurting me financially. You know, it was hurting everything in my life. But I just made up excuses to keep going.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Why do you think we were unable to stop back then? Why didn't we stop when they showed us the video or when you started the seizures or these things were happening?
It just felt easier just to continue. Like, it was like climbing a mountain. Like rehab sounded just like walking across the earth. Like it seemed impossible. Because I had tried to get sober on my own, and goddamn, I didn't last more than 2 days before I sat back down to what I felt a lot more.
Okay.
I mean, I was up in my bedroom,
Right.
but just feeling like shit.
So it was almost like you kind of like knew about it. It was just easier to do it the way that you were doing it.
It was definitely a lot easier.
Okay. All right. Thank you for sharing. Say that again. I'm sorry.
I believed at the time. Having gone through it now, I know that the grass is greener on the other side. It's easier to be sober than it is to be an active addiction.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Anybody else? Why were those moments not enough for me to recognize it? Yes.
When I was confronted I was 19. Anyway, I was a teenager. I needed it to function. So to stop shaking and to go about my purposeless, I needed it to function. So I kept telling myself like, oh, I must have like a brain tumor or like, you know, everything other than it was the alcohol.
Mm-hmm. So to you, like because you needed it to function, you're like, it has to be something else because I need this.
Yeah.
Right.
How can I live without it? Like
Right.
that's worse than continuing what I was doing.
How can I live without it?
I had like an opposite experience. Like,
Okay.
not me, it was my roommates that I was living with, like in the city, kept telling me to just like control it and like just control your drinking feelings, don't black out every time you go out. And I was having those conversations with them time and time again that I like realized like I can't. Like I have all like if you lied to Dr. Testimony and asked me if I wanted to drink again in the next morning, it would be a no, and that would be truthful. And then I would still drink that and black out that night. Like I realized I didn't have control by telling other people telling me to just control it.
So people are telling you, hey, just control it. Just like don't black out. And you're like, yeah, totally. Okay, I'll do that. That'll work. And then you find yourself just like, you can't not do that.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And to you, that was kind of like your first kind of like inkling that this is not okay.
Yeah, like this is a problem for sure.
Right. Okay. Like what? Keep going.
I was like, it's not normal. And
Mhm.
I realized, like, I think I always knew I was different. Like, my drinking was different than my peers. Like, I was always going to black out and others didn't. But, it just made it clear to me that I didn't have control over it anymore.
And what is that? What did you try? Did anybody, when you're in this moment, did you try to control it again, or did you try to do anything to fix your addiction at this time?
For example, like I'm only gonna drink beer. I'm gonna count how many drinks I have. I'm not gonna mix liquors together because that's probably why I blacked me out. You know, all those things that they talk about in the big book.
Just buy a six pack.
What?
Just buy a six pack. You know?
Yeah, like I would go to the freaking there's a 7-Eleven or a White Cat on the corner where I lived, and I would go and I'd only get like 1 or 2 40s. And the people there were always like, "Kill, why don't you just find more?" I'm like, "Cause it's all I'm gonna drink." And then lo and behold, I would come back, and they're like, "Just buy more this time." I'm like, "No, this is it." So I tried really, really hard to control it. And that's when I like fully recognized, like, I can't. This is way bigger than me. Like, there's no way me, myself, and I am gonna be able to stop this.
Do you think that path to that spiritual awakening is pretty common for anyone who becomes an addict?
I have no idea.
Like, do you think? Sorry, go ahead. Like, do you think it's common for people who struggle with addiction to, before their addiction is major, get to a place where like they recognize they have a problem and try to control it?
I think it's extremely common. Absolutely.
So although each one of us individually has our own subjective experience that led to this spiritual awakening, there are commonalities in these stories. This spiritual journey that leads someone to rehab is common, right? It's not uncommon. Very rarely do people come in here on a foundation of having everything managed, no health problems. You know what I mean? They very rarely come in thinking they have control, et cetera, et cetera. They come in with emotional unmanageability. Like, just consider, you know, when I remember being confronted about my drinking and blackouts, and it was very embarrassing to be told that blacking out is wrong and have no idea that it's wrong. And like I defended blacking out. Like, my dad was like, yo, you can't be blacking out like that. And I'm like, dude, yes, I can. What are you talking about, bro? I'm in college. And he's like, Jimmy, it's not okay to black out. You should not be drinking so much that you do not remember what happened. And I remember being like, why not? Like, why can't, dude, you couldn't have convinced me that what I was doing was wrong. Now, even in the times where you could have convinced me that what I was doing was wrong, I'm justifying it by saying I need this to function. I'm justifying it by saying if I don't have this, then you're going to get it. You're not going to get me. You're going to get fucking angry me, right? And what leads to this, what you're seeing leading to this is the suppression of emotions. The suppression, like, it's the repeated decision to use too much, too often in response to different circumstances, in response to different moods, and in different relationships. And what does that lead to? An adjustment in what I believe is right and wrong. And that's the same for everybody else, right? So although your experience may be unique to you, like everybody's life, right? It's not unique to addiction as a whole, okay? It's like there are common patterns to this. And go ahead.
It's hilarious how the differences. I just think a lot of people I've seen, like when I was sober and in the rooms and stuff, I feel like sometimes that first step is a challenge. Just admitting that they have a problem in general.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And keep in mind, sorry, go ahead. Say that again.
For me, I was like, yes, I have a problem. I know I need to do something with it.
Right.
Even though I knew I had a problem, I still had real trouble asking for help. Like, I had like the spiritual awakening or whatever that I had a problem, but I would be like, after this, if I go get another bag, I'm gonna ask for help, and then I'd get that another bag, and then I'd be like, well, I can just not do it. I can do it by myself. And then like a week go by, and then I get another bag, and then like after this bag, I'm gonna get help. And that happened like 4 or 5 times until my parents like came to me and were like, you can't function in society like how you're acting right now. And then without it was easier for me to accept it, other than me go up and tell them that I've been messing up. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That makes
Yeah, 100%.
yeah, exactly.
Or at least after this.
So what happened? What happened the moment you admitted?
That I needed help, or
Yeah, that you needed help.
what happened?
Like, where were you? Who did you admit it to? What happened?
I went home. It was after a breakup. I went home and I didn't have the access to the drugs. I didn't have the access to my drugs, so I was drinking a lot and just sitting around the house all day on Suboxone and drunk. And my parents came up to me and were like, they told me that I don't think you can go out here and get another job while you're acting like this, you know? And she was like, do you want to go to rehab? Or like, would you, she asked me would I go to rehab? And I was like, yes, I will, because I mean, it was months of me getting another bag, doing it, or it was like a month and a half probably, and of me knowing I need to get help, but like I was too scared of the consequences, which there wasn't. I was too scared to like tell them how how I've been acting and what I've been doing. They still don't even really know the full extent of what I was doing, just because they don't really need to know right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little far further out of my sobriety to let them know what was going on. And I talked to my mom about it. She doesn't really even want to know, you know. She like she move on kind of, but it was a relief when I finally was like, yeah, I'm going to rehab. You know, it was scary, but at the same time, I was sick of living the way I was.
So there's a difference, and we're discovering this right now, between having a spiritual awakening and admitting that you have a problem. That is why 12th step is separate from first step. But to get to the first step, one has to come to the spiritual awakening that they are, in fact, an addict, or they do, in fact, have a problem with addiction. Or it doesn't even need to be a problem. And what led there, although unique to us as individuals, is pretty common among people who develop addiction. And the same thing perhaps with any other problem that one might have, you know, whether it's like a flat tire, you know, health issues. There's pretty general causes that lead to these things. Now, even though now we're talking about all different spiritual awakenings, right? I mean, how come some people go to jail and they change, but I don't? How come some people have interventions like these spiritual awakenings? You could get one from working the step. You can get one from an intervention. You could get one from jail. You could get one from videos. You could get one from seizures. You could get them from trying to control your addiction. You know what I mean? And why are we not having spiritual awakenings? Because we may believe that there's an easier way of dealing with this, that we need it to function. Like, how can I live without it? Like, these things, first off, these thoughts are preventing us from having a spiritual awakening. Like, this lack of knowledge is preventing us from gaining knowledge. And a lot of it is driven by drugs and alcohol. Once you get those out of the way, the rest of the knowledge can actually come in. And I mean, look at interventions, jail, videos, seizures. These are opportunities for us to have this spiritual awakening, but we're not changing, right? Like just because I feel the shame of seeing myself embarrassed in a video from the night before, or I'm having seizures, or I'm going to jail, or there's an intervention, you know, that doesn't, you know, guarantee that a change is going to occur. How come it works for some people but doesn't work for others? How come some people need to go to jail to say, holy shit, I need some help? How come some people, maybe people overdose once and they say, whoa, I need some help? Maybe they have a seizure and they say, whoa, I need some help, you know? Well, I mean, most of the time, the change has to come from, I mean, dude, do I have to go to jail to learn about this? Or can I learn from someone else going to jail? You know, can I learn from seeing somebody else go through seizures? I mean, a spiritual awakening, I don't even have to experience it. You know, maybe I see somebody get hit by a car and then I decide to look both ways. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't have to have a spiritual awakening. Can be as a result of seeing somebody else go through it. Like, how do you even come to believe that you can stay sober? You have to come to some spiritual awakening that, wow, maybe I can stay sober. Maybe it is possible. Yes, do I have a hand up? Yes, I see you with your hand up, yeah.
So, like, I had to learn the hard way. Like, I've been to jail multiple times. I and I had to catch some pretty serious charges in order to set my ass down. Like, just wasn't like, I've been through a lot of stuff, and it didn't like, I've overdosed over 10 times, like, and that didn't stop me. But me going to jail this last time and having to sit for 8 months, and then being court ordered somewhere, that's what set me down. Like, because I'm being paid to be, like, I have to, or I have to go serve 2 years in jail. So,
You
I
know,
always have to like.
and I mean, just consider things like this. Like, I'll get to you in a second. Just consider things like this, though. Some people never get to 10 overdoses. They only make it to 9.
Yeah.
You know, some people never make it to jail. You know, some people aren't lucky enough to have the opportunity to get Narcan 10 times to come back. And it's like, holy shit. How the hell does it work out like that? How does it work out that life is so fragile? You have no idea. I'm sure, maybe you do know. I'm sure a lot of us actually do know how fragile life is, you know? And what the fuck? How come? Why now? Why did I have to go through all of that stuff to finally see that time is valuable, that my decisions were wrong? You know what I mean? And love yourself through that process, because that is your message. That is who you are. That is the journey that is to be walked to be the person that God's been trying to get you to sit the fuck down to see you actually are. And I mean, in that process, we were running away from all these signs. And it's not like we were doing it on purpose. It's because drugs jaded us, dude. Drugs and alcohol removed our ability to think and feel the right way. And now, I mean, I mean, dude, it's incredible that you've made it. And like, dude, like whatever you got to do to keep fucking going, bro. Like today, there's no reason today you can't learn something new. You know what I mean? Like, just think about this. At all those moments before, we had the opportunity to learn this thing, to open our eyes and look around and say, holy fuck, I'm in the worst place I've ever been in my entire life. I'm in a fucking trap house. I'm fucking drunk in a fucking pool of my own piss. I'm watching fucking videos. I'm letting my whole fucking family down. I'm having to do an intervention and shit like that. You know, we can't even take a second to look around and say, holy shit, I need to change. Well, bro, who's to stop you? Who says you're not doing that today? Who's saying you're not looking around saying, bro, I need to fucking change. Maybe I need to fucking focus. Maybe I need to share. Maybe I have to start thinking about what's actually happening right now in this discussion instead of being on my phone, having side conversations, fucking talking about some crazy dumb shit, dude. When I need to be here to save my fucking life, because who knows if I'm ever going to have another opportunity like this. Some people don't make it to rehab 10. Some people don't even make it to rehab number 2, dude. Some people only make it to rehab once. They make a bad mistake and they fucking lose their opportunity to end up back in a place like this. And forever got to fucking let their family down. And dude, by some random act of God, you've been granted an opportunity for that not to be the case. And if we took a second to look around and be like, oh my God, I'm actually doing it. Like, this is it. This is the last time. There is no going back. That was the last time I ever fucking used. Some people may be sitting here right now saying, that ain't the last time I used, bro. That ain't it. You know what? That's a relapse, dog. That's what that is. Until you say that's the last time, never happening again. What do you think's going to happen? And what is jail not enough? You need to hurt more people. You need to look at the shame. You need to watch your family fucking cry and fucking suppress that feeling again. Even more alcohol is going to take it this time. I mean, just think about the alcohol, how much alcohol it took before to suppress how much we hurt our family the last time. How much fucking pain you think is going to hurt this time. If you even stay alive to see the pain. If you even stay alive to see the pain. You know? If you're even there to walk, to make that amends. Or you're locked up. You can't make no amends in jail. How long is it going to take before you just give up on that dream? Right? While you're in jail, it's pretty fucking fast. Here you are not giving up. You have some random opportunity. Like this is maybe the spiritual awakening doesn't need to be, man, I fucked my life up. Oh God, what am I going to do? Maybe it's like, yo, this is the greatest thing I've ever done in my entire life. I'm so happy I made this decision. Why did I not do this before? What was I so afraid of? The cost, my insurance covered it. You know what I mean? These fears that were there before become invalid excuses. And it's like, dude, come on, man. Y'all are so worth it. You know, there's kids out there who need moms. You know, there's kids out there who need dads. There's brothers who need sisters. There's sisters who need brothers. Like all that shit. And we're in here trying to make that happen. There is a direct correlation between the drugs we do and that lifestyle. And the sooner we see that and say it's no longer a part of my life, the sooner we can start cleaning those things up. Thank you for allowing me to do that rant, sir. Please. Anybody want? Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, no, you kind of hit on it. It's like I had to prove it to myself that I could get sober before I thought it was possible. And get through withdrawals before I thought it was possible.
Where does some of that hope come from?
My current hope?
Where does that hope that it's going to be okay, I can do this, where does that come from?
Life is so much easier now. I can see life is clear. I'm not trying to accomplish 100 things at one time and then forgetting everything. Instead, I'm just like focusing on one thing and then forgetting about something. It's like I'm not like trying to multitask my entire life at one moment. But also just, I don't know.
Okay.
It allowed me to like meditate and actually get something from it rather than just sit there and bubble along high.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. Well, we are going to jump into some of this literature, and then we're going to talk about a little bit about the spiritual awakening that we've already had. We've already kind of answered some of these questions, but I want to hear y'all's answer to some of them. Let's share this. If we've made it to this point, we've had a spiritual awakening. Though the nature of our awakening is as individual and personal as our spiritual path, the similarities in our experiences are striking. Almost without exception, our members speak of feeling free. So now, just like we all share similar emotions in what we experience that leads to addiction, these are also similar experiences that people may feel that led them through while they work the steps. Almost without exception, our members speak of feeling free, of feeling more lighthearted more of the time, of caring more about others, and of the ever-increasing ability to step outside ourselves and participate fully in life. The way this looks to others is astonishing. People who knew us when we were in our active addiction, often appearing withdrawn and angry, tell us that we're different people. Indeed, many of us, they may say that on our journey to active addiction too. You know what I mean? Like during the intervention, they may be holding their letter being like, you're a different person. We used to do things together and now we don't do those anymore. Like that's the same fucking thing that we're talking about here. People who knew us when we were in our active addiction, often appearing withdrawn and angry, tell us that we're different people. Maybe they knew it before our active addiction. Indeed, many of us feel as if we've begun a second life. We know the importance of remembering where we came from, so we make an effort not to forget. But the way we lived and the things that motivated us seem increasingly bizarre the longer we stay clean. The change in us didn't happen overnight. It's happened slowly and gradually as we worked the steps. Our spirits awakened a bit at a time. It became increasingly more natural for us to practice spiritual principles and increasingly more comfortable to act out on uncomfortable to act on character defects. Notwithstanding the powerful one-of-a-kind experiences some of us had, we've all slowly and painstakingly build a relationship with a power greater than ourselves. That power, whether it's our best and highest nature or a force outside ourselves, has become ours to tap into whenever we want. It guides our actions and provides an inspiration for continued growth. So consider the moment you discovered and it's accepted that you were an addict. So think back to that time that we were talking about. What lasting changes have occurred in your life as a result of accepting and admitting that you're an addict? What lasting changes have resulted from coming to the spiritual awakening that you're an addict?
My parents on my ass.
So your relationship with your parents has changed.
Yeah.
Anybody else? What lasting changes have occurred as a result of your addiction? Time? How so?
I'll never get it back. I borrowed too much from my future. That's really what I think about the most, is that that'll never change. I'll never get that time back. It's gone.
Thank you for sharing. Anybody else? Lasting changes as a result of this spiritual awakening. Marriage?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, it's the way, realizing that I need help. So almost like the way I see myself and the way I need to operate in the world and in society, and to maintain sobriety. The realization that I need a community of sober people around me, asking for help, all of that. I don't know how I would put that into a few words, but
I think you put it greatly. And while as you're saying that, I'm agreeing with you, and I'm thinking about my journey of becoming a parent and how relative that same idea is. You know what I mean? It's now I'm different. I need to act different. I need to behave differently. I need to start thinking less about myself and more about my family. You see what I'm saying? And in order for me to be the person I want to be, those changes have to happen. So I'm going to have to work harder, do more, yada, yada, yada. And that's because I'm a dad now. I can never go back to not being a dad. And I think that is the spiritual awakening of wow, this isn't going anywhere. This isn't something I can just dust under the rug, get away. It's I have to do these things. And that was to me, the spiritual awakening. It's that's a lot of work, dude. You know, like going through life sober is going to be a lot of work. But once I started doing the work became easier to do. You know what I mean? And it's the same thing with anything. Like once I started drinking and driving became way easier. Once I started doing heroin, you know, going to buy heroin and do heroin became like way easier. Once you start going to rehab, it becomes pretty easy to go to rehab. Once you start fucking your friends and your family over, it becomes pretty fucking easy to keep doing that shit. Okay? And it's the same thing for good things. Once you start doing good things, it becomes pretty easy to do those things. And it's up to me to say those are more valuable than this. And every day, there's no telling when an opportunity is going to show up for you to have this awareness bestowed upon you. So there's no telling when some life shit is going to be presented to you and you're going to have to change. And there's no telling how big or small it is, right? Like, does it have to be a major thing? Does everybody have to sit you down and do an intervention and say, hey, you procrastinate a lot? You know what I mean? Or are you going to come to your own awareness of that? Are you going to say, whoa, I'm late all the time? You know what I mean? Do people need to, like, you know, sit you down? Like, do major changes need to happen? Do they need to take away phones? Do they need to, you know, come in and say this or that, no side conversation, clean your room? Or can you be fucking responsible, dude? You know? I mean, dude, let me show you this little statistic I heard recently. 40% of the population never drank their entire life. 40% social drinkers. 10% are binge drinkers. And 10% are alcoholics. Right? If you've made it this far, you're in that 10% bracket. And it's until you start accepting that and learning more about it, then the recovery may not happen. So it's like throughout my whole addiction, every day I went to the liquor store may have been an opportunity for me to recognize something's wrong. But every day I was so encompassed in my drinking that I was unable to see it. Maybe just for today, every day you've been going through some experience that is telling you to change in some certain way, but we are unable to see it. It's like, how can I now become aware of whatever this problem is and carry this message and yada, yada, yada. So, well, the steps may help you with that, but we're going to take a break now. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the message, because like we said, you know, I ended up at some point of you getting to that bottom and coming to your spiritual awakening. Some idea of recovery had to be presented to you, some message, whether it's visual, auditory, experience, whatever. Somehow you knew about recovery. And when you come back, I want to learn about how did you first hear about recovery? What was the message? What was your experience with it? Et cetera, et cetera. So great job so far, people. Thank you to the people who are off your phone and not doing side convos and stuff like that. Appreciate it. See you when you get back.